discussion presented by Brandon Bowman, Executive Director of Finance and Operations. Is Susan's here today, I see her. Okay. Feel free to begin.
All right, good evening. Welcome to our board members, Dr. Robbins, members of the community. It's my privilege to go through our proposed budget plan for the 24-25 year. My name is Brandon Bowman, Executive Director of Finance and Operations. I'll be supported today by Susan Halliday, my accounting and budget manager.
We could just wait until they get it up for a second. Are we able to get it on all three screens?
That would be great.
Working on that now.
Okay, thanks.
I can go ahead and wait for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm willing to bet most of you probably can't see this screen.
That's great for me.
Yeah.
Can somebody read me those phone numbers?
8280.
8280?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
No problem, so we're good? Yeah, so this is our budget for the 24-25 school year. This represents hours of work, looking at our budgets, looking at every conceivable way to make these budgets more efficient, working with our colleagues with ESD and OSBI, and working to present a very real and actual budget for the next school year. Next slide, please. So enrollment trends. Our revenues are heavily dependent on enrollment. And as you can see, between 2017 and now, we've been on a sliding enrollment scale with about an average change of negative 2.1% per year. For the 24-25 school year, it is projected to decrease by 0.9%. This was the number that we were using from a contracted demographer that does more than just a trend analysis that I was doing. So this represents our best data on the prediction for enrollment for next year at 9,000. Next slide. General fund budget update for 24-25. We do expect to have a beginning fund balance of 1.26 million. Our revenues are going to be just under 198 million. Expenditures also just under 198 million with an operating budget delta of only 32,000. The goal is to get to 0 or plus, and that's what we've done with this budget. Our ending fund balance is going to be 1.29 million. Go back up. This breaks down the sources for our revenues. You can see in our local revenues are going up to 26 million. This represents the levy funding coming in. We have state funding coming in about the same as last year. Federal funding is also about the same as last year. It's down 3.23%. All that reflects enrollment drop. On the other category, we have a reduction of 23%, mainly focused on the WABS revenues. That is a service that was contracted through us through a grant that we would process their payroll for them. That operation is going away, so the revenues and expenditures are both exiting our books. So our total budgeted revenue for the year is going up by 5.5% to just under 198 million. On the local revenues, you see from our levy kicking in at 24-25, that's gonna be the 84% change. That's gonna fall within the fall levy of 10.7 million, and spring we're looking at getting 14.3 million. On the bottom, you can see the local support non-tax, negative 83%. That is also the WOBs coming out. Also includes some other notes that are in there. In total, our budget's going up to 26 million, mainly reflecting the levy coming in. Next, please. On the state side, we're remaining pretty flat. We do have some changes that reflects declining enrollment, but we're also acknowledging increased costs and reimbursements on salary, benefits, and inflation. General apportionment's going down slightly, and state special purpose is going up by 3.1%, mainly in special education, food service, and transportation. On the federal side, we are seeing a decrease in special education, mainly unenrollment, and title programs are going up that's influenced by the low-income reduced demographic factors. Our early childhood programs are going down by 49%. This is reflecting a reduced federal funding level. We have ran out of ESSER dollars, that's going down by 100%. Our total revenues are decreasing by 3.3% on the federal side. Expenditures. Excuse me. We are looking at a total picture of 198 million for expenditures. In regular instruction, we're going down 9.4%, also reflecting the decline in enrollment. Special education, we are increasing to 8.1%, vocational 2.4%. Title compensatory programs, we're going down by 3.7%. Other instructional expenditures are going down by 25%. Again, the removal of the WOBs expenditures. Total pool, rental, and transportation co-op up 2.9%. And support services is going up by 0.6 services. That's 0.6%. This includes IPD increase, offset by service center admin staff reductions, furlough days by the executive directors that are now totaling 18 days of furlough. Total expenditures are going down by 4.2%. Here's our general fund for the 4-year budget projection. As you can see in 24-25, we have that number of 9,009 students. Now this is a delta to the prior year of 0.94%. You can see in future years, it goes down by 2.4%, 1%, 1.63%. We are offsetting most of our revenues with expenditures to support those students. And we have a pretty flat budget through those 4 years. This does not include any further planned reductions. I know that we have different targets set by OSBI to have a fund balance of 8% by next year. That will not be attained unless we do implement those further planned reductions. But we are looking at an ending fund balance of between 1.2 million and 1.4 million in the next 4 years, operating at a net zero cost basis.
Just a point of clarification, that OSBI is seeking for us to have a 5% fund balance.
Thank you, Dr. Robbins. Next slide, please. I am showing the transportation vehicle fund budget, as we have some agenda items today for that. This is a separate budget, it does not impact our general fund, and it's also very healthy. It's run by the depreciation schedule set by Washington State, and it's pretty much run on that schedule. We have a beginning fund balance of 1.5 million, revenues of 1.1. Those revenues are replacement costs for the buses that we currently have and are depreciated. Small buses 8 years, large buses 13 years. There is no benefit to us to extending the life of those buses past 13 years because they fall off our depreciation schedule. So once they fall off of that, we don't get any more money for them. And then usually those older buses cost more to maintain more often. Those maintenance costs go through the roof. So it is the recommendation from Washington State to follow that schedule, and that's what we are doing. Those expenditures, 1.5 million, so we will still have an ending fund balance when we're done. Our cash flow for the next 12 months, I'm not going to go through every number there, but I will notate that We are borrowing from our capital fund, but we're also going to be paying back our capital fund. We took a loan out of $5 million earlier this year. We'll be repaying that loan back to our capital fund in November of '24, and that will satisfy that agreement. We'll also be seeking a loan at $3.5 million at the same time after we pay that loan back to facilitate our cash flow through the year. We go red in February and March of '25. We believe we'll be able to mitigate that through fund management and using our general fund. However, we do have an issue coming up in June of '25 where we are negative $4.5 million. That is definitely on the radar, and we are looking to address that with additional funds from capital or an apportionment advance or a combination of both. Land reductions by category. So the administrative district leadership team has been meeting to look at reductions that we can sustainably do to still support our students. And this is the list by category of land reductions that are in this budget. We've taken a total reduction of $8.04 million out of the budget to make that balance. Next, please. Budget risks and opportunities. So this budget does have a risk, and that is a big risk for enrollment. I would say it's a yellow risk, a medium risk. The plan is using an estimate from the contracted demographer at 0.9%, and historical trend analysis would tell me that I should reduce it by 2.1%. We're hoping that he knows more than I do. So that is one risk. If we have enrollment that goes down below our levels, that is a significant impact to our revenues, and it's not entirely certain if we can offset that with our expenditures. On the opportunity side and special education, I do believe that there's some opportunities to find additional safety net funding between $1 and $2 million that would be able to release those funds that we already have in the budget to our basic education. I also believe that there are opportunities within our budget that we will not expend the total $6 million that we have in there for special education. This year's expenditures are $5 million over the state allotted amount, or the state reimbursed amount. So I believe that there's a little bit of opportunity in there. Next slide, please. Now this is a reminder, and we just got clarification that that target in the middle of 8% is actually 5%. But our goal for this year was to get to 0, to not present a negative budget, and to not have a negative fund balance. And I believe that our net zero budget will preserve the fund balance that we have. In 25-26, they were looking for 5% fund balance. I believe that that will be a challenge unless we enact the right sizing of the staffing to match these enrollment projections, looking for further efficiencies in our departments, and raising our capacity percentage to achieve the overhead efficiencies in our schools. This will include school closure proposals, property sales and exchanges, and looking at the district boundaries. I think it's gonna be a stretch to get to 5%, but it's doable. And then you can see for 26-27, that's about the same amount. Next slide, please. Go back one, please. And I'll defer to Dr. Robbins for the budget calendar.
Thank you so much, Brandon. One of the things that the board has asked is that we enshrine into some sort of a policy a budget development calendar. We've seen some budget development calendars that some other districts have adopted. So the one that you have in front of you is a draft for discussion, which moves up a lot of our budgeting processes. We haven't had a systemic sort of calendar. We've had practices, but not a systemic calendar such as this. So we want to take the lead from other districts who have been doing similar things. And this is the calendar that I'm proposing for review. And this is just discussion, and it can change, but I wanted to make sure that the board had an opportunity to review and comment on this calendar. And I believe that concludes the presentation, and right now, board, we're happy to entertain any questions that you have.
We don't have questions, so I think I'll start with the budget development, procedure and calendar piece. I wanna thank you for tackling this at the same time that we've been working on this, budget process. I think it's super important that we put some structures in place so that we, are not kind of back where we're at, and I understand kind of when you pull back the layers of the onion, right, we have lots of staff turnover and all sorts of different things. But the idea is that we have some structures in place so that next year looks different. So thank you for tackling this. And I appreciate that this gets to be a little bit of a conversation between all of us about how we want this to play out. It'd be great if we could have something finalized by the time, we adopt the final budget at our special session. You know, something I wanna make sure that we have opportunity for and that we build space in for is public input at different points along the way. And that, you know, November, December, kind of in that space, we have time to have a conversation with the board about budget goals and priorities for the year, as the budget gets developed. And then, we'll take a closer look at that, but some of like the early targets at some of our fellow districts. And really, it's just looking at best practices from other districts and not necessarily reinventing the wheel. But if our peers are, you know, getting their student counts January, February, and getting those in line and figuring out what their staffing allocations are, relatively early on, it would be great if we could adopt those practices so that again, we have plenty of time for a draft budget to get put in front of the board and then opportunity for folks to look at it, comment, and then make revisions so that we're not bumping up against deadlines. So, thank you for this. I look forward to continuing this conversation and having more specific comments. With respect to this, going to, I think, page 3, so your general fund budget and our ending fund balance of $1.2 million. I want to start with congratulations. It's great to have a positive number there. I know it was a lot of hard work to get there. And the question that I have is this the amount in the second financial plan that was approved by OSPI or right close to it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then my next question is there any magic in that number, or is it's the number that OSPI approved and we want to match that as closely as possible?
It is, I wouldn't say that it's the number that they approved and we wanna match it as close as possible. Just when we actually turn the crank and do all the budgeting, that's where we believe we are going to be. Of course, we would like to exceed that, but we're gonna but that's where we believe we'll be based on our expenditures and revenues.
Use the right words like encumbrances. That be corrected.
Can I say something? Nobody on Zoom can see any of the slides. So they don't know what you're talking about right now.
Is there a way to?
You can attach the link to chat or something too.
Sorry. Carry on.
I appreciate it. I do have a question real quick. I know you're in between questions, Kristen. The 0.9% projected enrollment decline that demographer gave us, when did we get that number from this demographer? Was it before or after the continuous Marysville news cycle? Because I would imagine that number might have increased.
Yeah, so we received that number in April.
Okay. And I know when the demographer gave us this number, they gave us a low, medium, and high figure. And I believe the 0.9% was the low figure, so a more conservative figure. Obviously, we're 2 weeks until school starts. So do we see kind of an excitement in the school enrollment? Does it seem like we're on track so far?
Right now, it's my understanding that we're on track to meet the projection. Right now, we don't have any trends that lead us to believe that we will exceed the projection.
So kind of dovetailing off of your question, Connor, I guess a question that I have, I know that, we have been holding some positions with the idea that we're gonna wait until we have students in seats before we commit to funding positions. Do we have enough of those positions held back to accommodate or offset a 2% drop in enrollment, let's say?
I believe we do, because we were pretty aggressive in the cuts this year because we had to be. So yes, and also just as a point of clarification, right now we don't have any evidence that leads us to believe in terms of just enrollment. We have no evidence to believe that we're going to exceed our projections. However, it is always possible for us to not quite meet those projections too. So I want to make sure that's clear. Getting to your point, sir, about the continuous news cycle, that hasn't been the most helpful for enrollment.
And I recognize that out in the buildings, it's really frustrating, I'm sure, when principals can't hire and do those things. I think, given the budget situation and what we need to accomplish, I appreciate the conservatism there. Again, knowing that it's not
difficult.
ideal, and if you're somebody out in the building, it's probably pretty frustrating. So, and then I think you touched on this a little bit, but in our federal revenues, our ECAP programs, dropped, at least the revenue dropped, because of ESSER funds, and I guess my question is, were there comparable offsets in our expenditures there? I think I may have heard that maybe we had some other grant funds that might be filling that gap, but I just wanna make sure that we're accounting for that loss.
We are. I'm gonna look at Susan here to help with that all the grant funds that we applied for came in, so we are fully grant funded there. And that contract should be coming in this week, so we'll be bringing that forward as well.
Okay. So that's new grant funds from a different source.
They're all, go ahead.
It's approximately the same thing, and most of our ECAP funding comes from state. So the federal part is, ARP money, which is kind of an ESSER cousin that we didn't know if we were gonna get more, but we got a little bit more coming in.
Okay, thank you. I don't wanna monopolize time.
And so the ECAP funding is already accounted for,
Yes.
the news funding.
Almost $4.6 million shortfall in July. I guess this says, the bottom says July, but it looks like it's actually in June. Is that the right? Yeah, that one. I think we experienced kind of the same thing this previous June, right? That's due to like 5% apportionment. Is the apportionment in this coming school year the same percentage across the board as it was last year? So we already know what to expect, what the apportionment looks like month to month. I guess my question is, if, I would imagine we're gonna have to, address with capital and or apportionment advance. If we have to address these shortfalls with, capital projects funds, and then over the next 12 months, we're paying back that debt, do we have that payback after that $4.6 million, built into the budget as well? Because if we're saying we're ending on a positive fund balance of 1 point, whatever it was for 25-26, does that also account for us continuing to pay back our capital projects fund?
Yeah, so as we did this year, we were able to borrow 5 million from the capital projects fund and pay that back. And we're just repeating that cycle. It's not my favorite way to do that, but, that is the lever that we can pull, and it's built into our model. So it's a net zero of the total budget. Ultimately, I would like to find other funding for that, but, that's what we have.
And also just a reminder that we took out that loan and paid it back immediately. So more than likely, we will,
What loan?
as
What loan?
Brandon has said,
The June loan.
throw that lever again. Yes,
Right, the June capital.
yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Well, since we're talking about borrowing, so I know our financial plan and note, had planned a $2.5 million, so we paid back our $5 million in November, and then we were gonna borrow $2.5 million. And this in front of us proposes borrowing $3.5 million. And I guess my question is, because I did look at one cash flow projection where you could see that in some out months, there was, some negative balance there, where we would need some cash. So my question is, does it make sense to borrow it all at the same time, or to borrow what we need and not have to pay the interest on that, and then maybe, you know, cause we know November's kind of a tough month, it was a tough month for us a year ago. So borrow what we need then, wait and see where we need, or if we need, and then borrow, as opposed to doing the whole thing at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to borrow exactly what we need and not pay interest. We are paying interest to ourselves
Right.
in the capital fund, so it's not a total loss there, but, I do wanna make sure that we
Takes away from kids.
do one transaction to cover the shortfalls that we have, and don't have to keep repeated borrowing in that cycle. That would make, more sense to me, but I hear what you're saying. I think we need to really look at the cash flow to see if that's the right number, and we'll see that as the actuals come in throughout the year.
Right, I was gonna say that's probably the other piece, is that as we see what actually happens. Yeah. Maybe it changes for the good, that would be helpful. I think, going through. But I do wanna talk about OSPI mandates, budget plan goals, and fund balances. I think, so we changed our board policy in March or April, I think, from 8% down to 5% to kind of reflect what other districts are also doing. And I believe at this point, we are still setting our fund balance policies. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if we were to move into a different arrangement with OSPI, right, if we were to move into additional oversight, at that point, they might have some discretion over fund balance policies, but at this point, they do not.
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, and I would love to see us get I would love to see us build our fund balance, but I also recognize that, it probably will take time, given kind of projected enrollment and revenues and all of those things. I'm happy to turn the mic over to folks to dig into areas of reduction and some of those things.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious about, the planned reductions and what that looks like. Making sure that we're, being fully transparent about that based off of, the levy that we sought to, and I get that we can't always always, that we have to do what we have to do, but the athletics portion, the counseling piece, there's just a lot of reductions, so I'm just hoping we can get a little bit more information on what this looks like, in a bigger picture, more comprehensive way.
I think, Kristen, I know, we were talking earlier, but I think, decisions like this, I think even having another, meeting or discussion before the 29th, just to kind of go into some more detail, would be great. I personally want to say, I really appreciate the way that you put it out. I'm pretty transparent in the fact that I am not the finance guy in my family. My wife does all the finances, and so to see stuff, laid out, the way that you laid it out is beneficial for me, but I think when we're talking about cuts, specifically to certain programs and staff members and departments, I wanna go into that vote knowing exactly what is being cut. And so, I think I would appreciate another meeting in between now and the 29th. And I don't know if the other board members would appreciate that too, but.
I would echo that for sure. I know behind some of these numbers are very specific things, and it just would be helpful to understand exactly where we're going with those items, so.
Absolutely, and I know that the team has been working just to make sure that we notify folks of any impending cuts. Team, is there any level of specificity that it would be appropriate for us to give at this time? Or it could be that we still need to work through HR. Okay, we are getting the head nod that we need to keep working and contacting people directly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna get ahead of, obviously I wanna be respectful and give you guys time to let staff members know or departments know. But I think, once that's done and, preferably, probably a week before the 29th, I think it's coming up quick.
It could be Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
We would need to do something
Right.
relatively soon.
Yep.
Yeah, just being able to see kind of a breakdown would be great.
And what we'll do is I will sit down with the team and we will make sure that we get that done for the board and the public.
That would be great. I think the other thing that would be really helpful is to quantify for our community the cuts that have been made over the last 3 years. I was frustrated by the media campaign by the state auditor, to be candid. She said that we hadn't cut enough, and I think when our middle schoolers have been going without typical sports for the last 2 years, our paraeducators have had hours cut. I've counted about $31 million in overall reductions. I'm not sure if my number is right, so please don't quote me. And I don't know what our total number is for staff reductions. But it has been dozens and dozens and dozens of staff. And I think it just would be helpful to quantify that in a way that is easily digestible. We have eliminated Marysville Online. There's been other programs that have either taken cuts or gone away, and so I think it's, I think it's just important to recognize that there's been a lot of work over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Do we have a comment from the team?
Yes, thank you. Brooke Marshall, Executive Director of HR, thank you for allowing me to interrupt. I'd also like to respectfully request that we include communication with our unions as well. So in addition to speaking with our staff, also having those conversations with our unions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, and one last question. Kind of directed towards you, Brooke. But anyone guess my, question is around staffing and, thinking about who may or may not come, at the end of the month to school. And do you feel like we have appropriate, safeguards or measures in place, controls really, to be able to, only hire for positions that we know we can't afford?
I don't think at this point we do. I think we have some work to do with regard to position control, as you refer to it, position management. It's something that is an extremely effective tool in terms of utilizing that, working with buildings as well as, working with department heads to ensure that we have all of that information. Oh, it wasn't working, sorry about that. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I think we have some work to do with regard to position control or position management.
And if I can add to that, just right now, the control is, there are no positions that get posted unless the superintendent says yes. That is not the way this should work. So that is the kind, so do we have a control mechanism? Yes. Is it the way it should be? No. And that is what, Brooke Marshall is talking about now.
And in my experience, it's laid out really thoughtfully, and there is proper, documentation, including like, administrative policies and procedures that are specifically referencing the process that HR, finance, and others, on the leadership team would, participate in gathering information, analyzing that, and, doing so in a timely manner.
Okay. So, I guess for me right now, in addition to the budget development piece, I would ask that the team work to develop a process, and I'm sure that takes a minute, right? But, that seems pretty essential.
Absolutely, part of our, our plan and our controls, I think that's so important, because we've had some missteps
Can't hear you.
over the.
Can't hear.
We have seen some missteps over this past, I think, year with part to HR and position control, so I think that process is vital, and I agree, very important, thank you for taking that on.
Absolutely. And I have some, templates that I'm happy to share with regard to, prior experience in, other school districts. I would like to also say, thank you to, our union leadership. We've been working with them this week, and, I just wanna take this opportunity to say thank you for their time.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think if there's, any opportunity to not have to reinvent the wheel, is great. There's school districts who do things, quite successfully, and are pretty local to us, and so, to be able to use what has already been created to benefit our district, I think is great. As far as the budget development procedure, this is one of those things where, I think we're late to the game with this. I think that this should have been a part of our district for quite some time. Nevertheless, I'm excited to get that process started. I think if we can build, triggers, MSD triggers within our budget development procedure, then that kind of keeps us out of the state's eyes if we're tripping some of their triggers. So if we can build triggers well in advance, before any state requirements or federal requirements are due, and get ahead of that, I think that's preferable. So I appreciate the work that's gonna be done on this, and, I think it's needed sooner rather than later, so I think that your request, to have a kind of more substantial procedure by the 29th, I would agree with. I think I would want that too.
I totally agree, this is one of the things that, as a board, in outlining the processes that are taking place. This is one of the things that we've had discussion around that we have agreed is absolutely important, especially in the situation that we're in. It allows more transparency. It allows us as a board to always know what's coming and be prepared. And, I just noticed like on this, it's adoption of a budget in early July. That would be fantastic. Where we're not right here and, I just think it creates some, certainty around where we're going, and it creates trust. I feel like having these transparent, processes and procedures in place for moving forward. And building building us back up, so as a district.
And if I may add to that, so this is, your third week in the office now, and part of my, intensity is, collaborating with all the colleagues that I have in surrounding districts, and to your point of not reinventing the wheel, collaborating with them to see what their budget calendars look like and their triggers internal to their finance teams. And so that is a shared vision that I wanna have this, budget preparation process to be an incremental process that everybody knows ahead of time. So we're not putting together revisions of budgets, within 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a shared vision, we'll take care of it.
Appreciate it.
I also just wanna take a minute when we're still here to recognize, the work that staff has put in the last couple of weeks. We have some folks that are relatively new to, HR. We have new HR and new finance folks, and then obviously the work of all of our executive directors who've been here, but I know that folks have been burning the midnight oil. And we've had, like I said, some relatively new folks, especially in HR, doing some, tough work on the data, so it is appreciated.
Yes, James and Randy have been rock stars. The work they've done has been incredible. Putting in so many hours on weekends, at night, identifying challenges, reconciling challenges, asking the right questions. So we're very, very fortunate that they're on a team, and we thank them for all of their work. And Guadalupe, absolutely. I guess I'm thinking about who do I see the most because they're in the meetings, and also Guadalupe with the staff, and heck, we can keep going. We can talk about Susan and all the work. Susan had a toothache, was still rolling. So just thank you so much for all the work. There've been so many people who've been plugging away.
I guess my next question is, as far as the Financial Oversight Committee, now that we have, that we're in the process of developing this, what date do we need to have, this to the Financial Oversight Committee? And what date, is Chris Reichel expected to, kind of give us an assessment of our budget and where we're at?
Yeah, so we're meeting with OSPI on the 23rd, to go over the budget. Our deadline is at the end of this month, August 31st, for the F-195 submittal to ESD. And so that goes to ESD and gets filtered to OSPI as well.
And then, Chris Reichel or OSPI, when they give us an assessment from that data, do you know what date that is? Is that the 30th or the 31st? Okay. So we will, so I know are we going to submit our budget on the 31st or on the 29th after it comes to the board, if we approval?
Approves it on the 29th, that has to go as is.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about, I would like, I think, to have that information from Chris Reichel before we submit a budget. But it looks like, we will be submitting our budget, and then we will hear word from Chris Reichel on what next steps are. So I just wanted to clarify that kind of timeline.
Yeah, for some transparency and clarification, we have submitted the current version of this budget to ESD for a preliminary review. And their first comments that came out were very short in comparison to other changes they requested in the earlier drafts. So they're definitely aware of what we are doing, and we are getting a lot of attention and scrutiny over the budget. So when we do submit it, it should be pretty clean for us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any of the other board members have any more questions? Comments?
Other than I appreciate the addition of, work study with some additional information between now and the 29th. I think other than that, good.
I think it needs to be included. I'm just saying.
I'm free. Yeah, I'm free on Monday.
Me too.
Whatever's the pleasure of the board, we'll make that happen.
Okay. So we'll agree, the 26th, Monday, 5 o'clock. And can we just, I guess we can just open it up as just a work study, right? So, okay.
So we'll do the formal hearing and whatnot on the 29th.
Yeah.
And just for, I will be out of town on the 29th.
Should be able to.
Maybe, I'm gonna be on East Coast time, but I probably would not be on Zoom, you're right.
Well, with Craig here, we're good. Okay. Right. Anything else from the team as far as the budget? All right, well, our regular session meeting starts at 6 o'clock, so we will break for about 13 minutes until 6 o'clock. Thanks, Brandon.
Oh, the other one I kept fat fingering. Yeah. Which text can I be part of without driving myself batty? Which one is that? Ah. Yeah, you can have it. How many more? No, just clicked the wrong one. Yep. Yeah. Just put SGP.
Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and bring this meeting to order. It's August 19th at 6 p.m. We're gonna start off with the flag salute, and I'll go ahead and lead us in that.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, their stories, and their voices to form a more just and equitable society. Moving on to the approval of the agenda, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, District number 4, Director, Oath of Office, presented by Dr. Zach Robbins, Superintendent. Craig Harris, come up as well. You have family members here with you? They can come up too.
With all the babies.
This is the oath of office for your school directorship. You can please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Craig Harris,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the constitutions and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington.
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington.
And I will faithfully and impartially perform
I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties of the office
and discharge the duties of the office
of Marysville School District number 25, Director of District 4,
of Marysville School District 25, Director of District 4,
for the remainder of the term,
for the remainder of the term,
November 25th,
November 25th,
according to the law to the best of my ability.
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
Director, welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You may, actually, family, would you all like to take any pictures before we ask the director to sit?
I'll take, do you want me to take one for you?
I was gonna say, we can.
We got you.
Ready?
All right.
You know somebody you can send it to.
So good, yeah.
I'll send it to Teresa. Perfect, thank you. Okay. Very nice.
Say a round of applause.
And with that, we're gonna go to item number G, which is the Board of Directors reorganization, presented by Dr. Zach Robbins, Superintendent.
Thank you, sir. So right now, Board of Directors, we are calling for a nomination through a motion of the board for the position of president. Again, we are calling for a nomination through a motion of the board for the position of president.
Motion to nominate Connor Krebs as the president.
I'll second.
Connor, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
All right, once confirmed, so there's a motion and a second to elect Director Krebs to serve as board president. All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Congratulations, sir. You will take the rest of this process.
Thank you very much. I am calling for a nomination of Vice President. Again, I'm calling for a nomination of Vice President.
Motion to nominate Kristen Michael as vice president of MSD School Board.
There's a motion and I second. All right, all those in favor. Oh wait, sorry, Kristen, getting out of line. All right, do you accept the nomination for vice president? All those in favor for vice president Kristen Michaels?
Aye.
Aye. And you have to vote too. You're not.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now I'm calling for a nomination of the legislative representative. Again, I'm calling for a nomination of the legislative representative. And I'm going to nominate Eliza Davis.
Can I get a second?
I accept.
Awesome.
All right, there's a motion and a second and an acceptance. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I think that concludes our board reorganization. I do want to mention before I move on to the next subject that on Friday, I received an email of a formal resignation effective immediately from School Director Beth Hoiby. So we will again start the process to fill a vacant board seat. And again, that process is a 90-day process at most. And that process will start today, August 19th. So, all right. On to the next, item H, superintendent's report.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Zach Robbins for the record. The summer graduation ceremony was a success. Congratulations to our graduates, and thank you to Bonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Schools, and high school principals, Ayana Lee, Nathan Plummer, Peter Apple, and Carrie Lindsay for making the event possible for our students. Many families were in attendance to celebrate the students' success. Back to school, we are gearing up for the start of a new school year. School offices are now open to serve students and families. We welcome teachers back to school on the 26th, followed by support staff on the 27th and 28th, and the first groups of students on the 29th. On the 29th, students in grades 1, 5, 6, and 9 will attend for the soft start, 1st and 12th on the 30th, with preschool and kindergarten starting the following week. Watch for important dates and information from your child's school. A report on MSD alumni. Congratulations to 2 Marysville School District alumni. Raekwon Battle has earned a spot in the NBA, and Chris King is the new sports announcer for WSU Radio. Both students attended Marysville Pilchuck High School. We congratulate them on their accomplishments. Budget adoption, the 2024-2025 budget will be presented to the school board at a special meeting on August 29th at 5 p.m. The meeting will include an overview of the budget, a public hearing, and board action, and that is my report.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Next up, communications reports, student staff board reports, starting out with the district leadership team for department updates.
Thank you. Hi, Bonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Education. And my update has threefold. First, I want to piggyback on what Dr. Robbins said. We had a wonderful summer graduation ceremony. Definitely something that I hope we can continue. The families really deserved and enjoyed that opportunity to celebrate the hard work of their students, so that was great. We also last week did our annual administrative kickoff. We did that at the Marysville Pilchuck Commons area. At that time, principals, they heard from Dr. Robbins about our strategic planning, where we're at. He gave them an update on some budget. We also got a chance to work on our school improvement planning with the staff. Jody Runyon did some work on communications and making sure that we're really good stewards of those tools. They had some learning from our counseling team around the role of counselors and how admin can support that work within the building. So lots of learning, also lots of time to work with their teams. We had some teacher leaders that were there with them. All in all, a really positive first 3 days. a lot of work, but, I think they're gonna be ready. They're really looking forward to getting school started.
Lori Knudsen, Executive Director of Elementary. I want to start off by saying, Director Michaels, thank you for, acknowledging the anxiety that principals may be feeling around staffing, because that is very true. Elementary principals have met 3 times for at least 4-hour sessions in getting ready for the school year, and they are working really hard, so thank you for acknowledging that. They are truly strong instructional leaders. Last week, elementary administrators received training on enhancing school literacy outcomes. The letters training that we continue to do emphasize the importance of recognizing key signs of reading to better support instruction and interventions at the school level. This is not only at the leadership level. We've had participants gain insights into effective teaching strategies, lesson planning, and understanding literacy routines. They worked on analyzing the current systems to improve student literacy, to integrate reading assessments into existing frameworks. Again, what we have in place is giving us some gains in student achievement, but not exactly where we want to be at. So we again are focusing at the elementary level around those foundations of reading, and have buy-in with teachers and administrators, and that's what it's going to take for us to move the student achievement towards our student achievement goals. After the June week-long letters training for teachers and the second administrative letters training last week, principals will provide ongoing training during school improvement time on our professional growth days throughout the school year to ensure continuous professional development. In collaboration with our consultant, Lori Toth, with letters, a 10-day professional growth pacing guide has been established to reinforce these initiatives throughout the school year. So again, administrators have had 2 administrative trainings. They've also attended stage 1, the week-long summer, 4-day summer institute around letters. So that's just stage 1. We want this to be an ongoing implementation, so we want to support it throughout this school year. So I have worked with the consultant to put in almost like a 10 lesson PD plan for administrators to use throughout the year. And then we will have stage 2 of the Summer Institute of Letters next June. When teachers complete the stage 1 and stage 2, it is also a certificate for their endorsement, which in states now require for elementary teachers to have. So everyone's really working hard around the implementation of letters and literacy, and we're looking forward to our student achievement outcomes to get better.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, President Krebs, Vice President Michael, and members of the board, Dr. Robbins, and community members. I'm Brooke Marshall. I'm Executive Director of Human Resources. This is the end of my 11th day with the district, and I'm really happy to be here. This past week, Human Resources, as you know, aside from budget preparation and staffing work, we worked as an executive leadership team to finalize HR staffing, both for certificated and classified staff. In addition, additional work this week included placement of certificated staff in partnership with the executive directors of elementary and secondary education, as well as the Marysville Education Association President Becky Roberts. We also met with SEIU 925 leadership to discuss and finalize classified paraprofessional staffing. We have initiated the bidding process and have scheduled for that process to occur at Marysville Pilchuck High School Commons, and that will be held August 26th, 27th, and 28th. Again, appreciative of the work with Christine Twist and also Christy Taufest We have spent quite a bit of time working on that. Again, I would like to acknowledge, as Executive Director Knudsen did, there is a lot of stress around these conversations. I want to recognize that and state that that is something that is in the forefront of our mind as we're working on these staffing plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Robbins, members of the community. My name is Brandon Bowman. I'm the Executive Director of Finance and Operations for the school district. On the finance side of things, so we're heavily involved in the creation of the budget, especially the documents that we reviewed in our work study today. For my team, it's been all hands on deck to create that budget and work closely with our colleagues with ESD and OSPI to meet their guidelines. I'd like to especially recognize Susan Halliday, my accounting and budget manager, who's been working essentially around the clock to work some of these scenarios and redo these budgets. I also want to recognize our HR staff, James Allen and Randy Young, for their help. This process cannot be done without a seamless interaction between HR and finance. So our teams are becoming one. On the operations side of the fence, we did select our food service provider for the year. We decided on a transportation bus plan, and all of those departments were working on streamlining our informal processes to make those transitions more seamless. Essentially, most of our actions have been working with OSPI and ESD for the budget, and that has been the main focus of this department for the 3 weeks that I've been here.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, upcoming events. I'll go ahead and read through this list. So we have August 20th is the NJROTC drill camp in PHS. The 21st, we have Tulalip Tribes Back to School Bash at the Don Hatch Youth Center. That's from 12 to 5. We have a NPHS greenhouse cleanup, which we've been talking about for the last few board meetings. That's August 23rd, 24th, and 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We've got a bunch of welcome back events scheduled for August. Obviously, school's starting up, so August 26th, the 10th Street welcome back. 27th, we have Quilceda Tulalip Elementary Totem Pole re-raising and welcome back event, 5 p.m. 29th is the first day of school for grades 1 through 5, 6, and 9 only. The 29th is the special meeting of the Board of Directors, where we'll have a budget hearing and adoption. August 30th, second day of school, all grades attend except preschool and kindergarten. And then Labor Day's coming up, September 2nd, no school that day. And then the first day of school for preschool and kindergarten, September 4th. So a lot of back to school stuff happening this month, leading up to school start. All right, next we're gonna move into hearing of business of visitors. I'll go ahead and read some of this script here. So each individual has up to 3 minutes. Individuals wishing to combine their time must sign in on the speaker's clipboard. To combine time, parties must be present. Maximum of 2 people can combine their allotted time for a total of 6 minutes. And then the maximum time allotted for the hearing of business of visitors is 30 minutes. We got the list out front here. First on my list is Nancy Harden. Hello, Nancy.
Hello. Nancy Harvey, community member and volunteer. In the spirit of Connor Krebs' message on August 8th that was then published in the Everett Herald over the weekend as a guest commentary, I would like to tell you about a man named Pat Campbell. I met Pat while attending the University of Washington. I would like you to picture a 6-foot-tall leprechaun. My roommate and I were looking for volunteer opportunities and ended up at Blessed Sacrament Church basement, helping to feed anyone who walked through the basement door. Pat Campbell was one of the founders of the Blessed Sacrament Sunday Feed-In. When did all this happen? I met Pat in about 1970. Times were tough for some. There was even a giant billboard with a picture of a bare light bulb with the words, "Will the last person leaving Seattle turn out the lights?" Boeing had had it turned down. Back to Pat. Pat was the kind of person who, when he saw a homeless person, he would hurt for that person. At that time, there were several places that offered a free meal to the homeless Monday through Saturday, but none on Sunday. Pat stepped up to offer a meal on Sundays. The door was open to anyone who walked through, and they became Pat's guest for dinner. The homeless were bused up from downtown to the U District. Pat's guests every week also included college students and out-of-work Boeing engineers. Everyone was welcome. How is it that Pat was a co-founder of the Sunday Supper, as well as a co-founder of Genesis House? Well, Pat would look around and see something needed fixing. And like most people, he would say, somebody ought to do something. The difference with Pat is that he realized he was somebody. Pat made a difference. I believe that everyone here and those taking the time to listen via Zoom want Marysville to Laylup School District to succeed. They want us to survive and eventually thrive. We are all somebody. We can make it happen.
Very much. Next up on my list, I have Mike Hogan. Next, I know I messed it up last time too, so
Yeah, that's okay.
thanks for being here, Mike.
A lot of people said Hogan. I'm Mike Hogan. I'm a community member from the school district. I came in with a pretty good straight idea of what I was gonna say or talk about or questions. And of course, the work study just blew that out of the water. Kind of, my boat got rocked trying to figure out, oh, now where am I gonna go with my questions? First one, I would like maybe addressed, I don't know if it'll be addressed later tonight or tomorrow or the next day or the next day, but our insurance situation. I haven't heard where we're at with that yet, and I know 2 weeks, we're gonna need insurance. We're gonna have a lot of kids and staff here, so I'm not sure where that's at. As far as HR, a few weeks ago, 30 plus employees, I thought they were mostly teachers, either retired or resigned from the district. I'm assuming most of those had fairly full classes, so anywhere from 25 to 30 students, so anywhere from 800, 900 students. Yet we've only got maybe 5 or 10 rehires I've seen posted. I'm not sure. We're gonna, and I heard us say we're gonna leave some of those kind of not vacant or empty, but we're gonna wait to see who shows up. I know how that is with schools. You don't know, the warm body count is really important. It's gonna be down to the eyebrow, who's here. But the question is, who's gonna fill those positions? And I'd like to see administration in some of those positions, saving money, showing the face that you guys and the school administration are there. Leaving principals available though to greet the students so the students get to know who their principals are. Because I know what it's like in high school. Who's that guy? Well, that's the principal. Yeah, right. Paras. Parafunding. I know we just had a bunch of paras shifted and being moved around. From firsthand knowledge, the notices and the bidding process, my wife was one that got a call at 8 o'clock at night, the night before school starts. She had already moved into her position, met her principal, set up her desk, did all of her work, met some students, met some parents, And then at 8 o'clock at night, where we're watching a wonderful show over at the Evergreen State Fair, gets told, you're gonna be at a completely different school, at a completely different grade level that you've never worked with. Now, she was a teacher who came back as a para. Holy moly, this needs to happen back in June. This can't happen now. This upsets not only the teachers, paras, but the students and everybody around those. So who's gonna fill those positions? Administrators at the crossing guard, that's one of the things she's done over many years. Anyway, buildings closures. You've got the totem being closed in 2025, 26. Putting a new roof on, I understand that's through a grant, but it's grant money that I'm paying out of my pocket. You're paying out of your pocket through taxes, federal or state, or wherever that grant came from. And the question I've got is, if we close that building, I know it's protecting our infrastructure and our assets, but those assets aren't gonna be used as a school again if we close it. If we move out of there and then the school decides to sell them, it's not gonna be a strip mall. They're gonna tear it down and remodel it. So those roofs, that's kind of a moot point, putting a roof on it. When you've got 10th Street School, which is the least inclusive, most restrictive educational process, and I got that from first-hand knowledge, how that is being allowed to run the way it is, lower that. You're increasing its size by bringing in portables now. And by the way, there's 2 portables that used to be the shop program that was gonna be the Marysville Online. I just don't know if the bigger picture is being looked at. And then you've got a greenhouse that's gonna be staffed by people that aren't CT, that can bring more money in. And that's close to my heart, because I am a horticulture teacher. Retiring this next year, and I think about the 2 teachers that were in there and what kind of stab that is in the heart when you watch a wonderful program like that be pushed off to the side and disappear. And I get it, it's great that we're bringing the greenhouse back, 100%. But you're gonna have teachers in there that are going to be basic ed teachers, not CTE in most cases, more probable. And CTE classes bring so much more to those kids' lives. Maybe shifting some of the science teachers around, getting a CTE science class back in there and working that program and building up your ag program in your school and your farm. And I've been flashing for probably 30 seconds, so I know.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, just more questions.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Dorothy Moran.
Yep, you got it.
Hi, Dorothy.
Hi. Okay, I stand before you to address a matter of great importance concerning the leadership of the Marysville School District. We as concerned parents and community members have united to begin filing a formal complaint with the Northwest Educational Service District 189 and the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Our complaint is not made lightly. It is driven by deep concerns about adherence to the Code of Professional Conduct outlined in Chapter 181-87 WAC. A series of troubling actions have occurred, leading us to question the direction in which our district is headed. Among these concerns, we have identified a pattern of hiring practices that appear to prioritize personal relationships over merit, raising serious questions about cronyism within the district. Furthermore, critical decisions continue to be made without transparency or accountability, which was discussed earlier in the work study. This includes budget mismanagement, misrepresentation of financial data, and the lack of communication with both the community and key stakeholders.
Weird.
The discrepancies between the information provided to SPI and the Marysville School Board, as well as the failure to address critical issues in special education services, which I personally have an interest in. My son, it will be in 7th grade at Cedar Crest and has an IEP, and I will be there if those things are not followed. Are just a few examples of our concerning behavior. Our district has also faced increased risk and liability under the current leadership. Employment practice liability claims have skyrocketed, and there have been failures in mandatory risk management practices, all of which endanger the stability and reputation of our schools. I'm also the mother of a 2024 NG graduate, by the way. Despite our previous efforts, including a petition with over 1,100 signatures and overwhelming votes of no confidence from key organizations, the Marysville School Board chose to ignore us. We now turn to NWESD and the Office of Professional Practices and any other relevant Washington State agencies to intervene and protect the future of our district and its students. A community petition will be initiated to bolster the complaint being filed and will remain open to collect signatures until September 20th, 2024. Immediate filing of this complaint will follow that date. Our students deserve better.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Next on my list, I have Annie Fitzgerald.
Hi. So, I don't have exactly a tidy prepared statement, but, I would like to say I've been following these issues in this district for several months now. And I am disappointed. I am thoroughly disappointed and I am thoroughly scared for our district. I second the concerns that Mike brought up and Dorothy.
Thank you.
I'm extremely concerned about the programs that are being cut, the loss of staff, and lack of accountability from our board. Dr. Robbins, I do not believe that you should be in your position at this time, considering that there is an investigation going on. You should be on administrative leave. I have little confidence in the rest of the board members, but I have reached out to you guys on a couple of occasions through emails in an attempt to meet with you to hear out your side of what's going on. I'm extremely concerned that there's been a lack of accountability for the superintendent as well as the rest of the board. I am concerned about the budget. It's a complete mess, and I feel like we are rushing through this. Another big concern, insurance. Here we are, 2 weeks out from the start of school. And as far as I know, we have no insurance. Why are we tackling the budget right now when we don't even have insurance in place? I also want to share a concern about some of the programs being cut. Students are having to fund their own athletic programs. I'm concerned about special education and other important programs. I am running to be state rep in District 38, and if elected in November, I will make sure and I will push for legislation both on a local and state level so that this never happens again. I will make sure, personally, I will make sure that everyone responsible for this mess will be held accountable and consequences will happen. This cannot happen again. This needs to be fixed right now. And I have little confidence that the people in charge of this have the competency to do so at this point in time. So I will be watching and I will be following this. And I will make sure that this is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie. Next up, I have Debbie Harris. Debbie? Hey, Debbie.
I'm Debbie Harris, community member and previous 31-year classified employee who was also heavily involved in bargaining for most of those years with our SEIU 10-month contract. And I'm here today to advocate for our professionals and bring to light the stress many of them have been dealing with it since Thursday evening, less than 2 weeks before they are due to report to their buildings, train with other staff, and prepare to welcome our students. On Thursday, every paraprofessional in the SEIU 10 bargaining group was sent a RIF notice from the district. It's worth noting that this same group received letters of reasonable assurance in June with the acknowledgement by everyone here that we are actually short paraprofessionals and have been, we've had unfilled positions, all last year and the previous year, and staff in buildings scrambling to make things work on a daily basis. Last week's notice stated that they would be coming, parapros would be coming in the week of 8/19 for the parapro placement process when they're still on vacation. Subsequent emails relayed that there would be a repackaging of all positions and a rebid beginning 8/26. And those are days when they should be preparing in their buildings with their other staff and training and planning for students to arrive. Through past experience, we know it's extremely disruptive for teaching teams, buildings, and our students. A member recently told me that this process is a bit like the Hunger Games, and she's not wrong. There's a lot of animosity. There are changes that take place in buildings that have dynamics that are felt much later. We've had parapros comment that 20 years ago or so this happened and they hadn't gotten over it. Knowing our contract, this is absolutely not something that's necessary. The SEIU 10 bargaining agreement states that if there is a 20% reduction, that the union and the district can discuss a rebid. Currently, we have approximately 11% in reductions. We are losing 56.5 Para 1 hours, or 43 positions for Para 1 that are impacted. Doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a space for them, and our contract clearly outlines the displacement process. Paras are displaced for one reason or another every year due to program changes or somebody moving away. We have contract language that addresses that. But I wanted to get back to the reason we're being told is the situation to begin with, and that's that lap paras have been cut from the elementary level, and that money is being used to fund teachers at the secondary level. I want to know if this was well thought out. We all know the importance of early intervention, and this will absolutely have a trickle effect. The impact will most certainly be felt by young learners from years from now. Paraprofessionals offer the biggest bang for our buck district-wide dealing with students. Everybody knows that. They don't make a lot, they make a big difference. Lap reading groups, lap math groups, tutorial groups, the supervision, the safety of our students is imperative, and the community feels that, and that's a direct impact that they're experiencing, and might even be a reason that they're pulling their students from Marysville. In addition to the disruptions, it might be helpful to know that every single time paras are cut, every single year, our past HR directors will tell you this, by October, we're bringing them back and then some, because this is a need. It's not an area we can afford to cut. It's not a want. We find out every year as the administrators in those buildings are advocating, we can't lose that time. It looks great on paper. It doesn't look great in reality. And I'm wondering if the district is looking closely enough at that. Recently also, there were 5 assistant SLP positions posted as non-rep. Previously, these assistant SLP positions were paraprofessionals, 5 positions, paraprofessionals. I'm told the reason these are posted as non-rep is to save money. Really odd when these positions start at $33 an hour and a para starts at $26 an hour. I'm wondering if it's an effort to maybe put assistants in positions where a certified SLP should be instead, and we know that that doesn't work because it's required to have an SLP providing, a certified SLP providing those services. I'm asking that the language be changed and these be put back as parapro positions, and it truly would save our money, save the district money, and it would save jobs. Last year, our parents went through a similar fiasco. Connor, you will remember that. And the board repeatedly said, we did a poor job, we won't do that again. Here we are, 2 weeks before school starts. And I just want to end by saying MSD can do better.
next week school starts for some.
Yeah, MSD can do better. We've been asking that for some time now. Our students should be the priority. And if we are truly prioritizing our students, the cut should be made as far away from students as possible. I know it's a hard decision. One director position would fund several para positions, and I'm wondering why the assistant director positions in some of these haven't been looked at before our paras. Thank you.
All right, next up on my list, I have Christine Twiss. Christine.
Hi, Christine Twiss. I'm the one of the vice presidents of SEO CIU 925, our 10th chapter, and I'm standing before you tonight. I think we were standing here about a year ago as well, talking about cuts and para cuts once again. Again, on short notice, we're going to have to ask paras to come in and go through the busing process. Christy Tautfest, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, which is why I'm standing up here very nervously, she asked in one of our past board meetings that support staff, when it comes to budget cuts, as we told us in the spring that budget cuts, we've been all for years talking that budget cuts not be funded on the backs of our parent educators and our support staff throughout the district. And yet here we are. In the spring, notification was given to SEIU leadership that there may be cuts, but they couldn't sit down with us as they didn't have enough information at the time. There wasn't enough time to get notification out, and letters of reasonable assurance letters needed to go out. We had to grieve that in order for that to get done. That was only done weeks ago, and now RIF notices have gone out. The process is really hard, it's very difficult on all of the members. There's no time to process. We were just found out this on Thursday. So trying to get information out is difficult, and we understand that it's very difficult for HR to get that out. We tried hard to see if we can get something out that made some sense. So I do ask that there's some forgiveness on that end for both HR and SEIU. The information is a little confusing, but I can assure you, the board, and all of our members, our collective bargaining agreement will be honored and followed throughout this process. The process of doing this it's heart-wrenching. People are planning to show up, and I want to make sure, Dr. Robbins, that it's clear we return to school on the 26th, 27th, and 28th, and those are the days that we'll be scheduled to go in and work through this process of assignment, reassigning positions. I've asked you to please look for reductions elsewhere. Just an example of some of the cuts that are being made. We have a position that's 30 minutes of crossing guard duty. 15 minutes of that has been cut. I know this position, 15 minutes of it is at the beginning of the day, 15 minutes is at the end of the day. Which 15 minutes is going to be cut? Which crossing duty is not going to be covered? Other positions, like the cafeteria, supervision, recess duty, who is going to be covering those areas filled with children and their needs? Seek reductions elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is going to conclude our hearing of business visitors. And we are going to move into the approval of minutes. We have a motion for the approval of minutes.
Says that meeting minutes are gonna be presented at our next meeting.
Okay. All right, next up, consent agenda. Have a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Just giving you an opportunity there. Is that what you were doing?
I was.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I have the gifts to the district here. Oh, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
just asking, this has all been decided, basically, so the expenditures.
So
The vouchers and all that, 'cause that's, I just had, when I was looking over the information, new guy, I wasn't familiar with some of the money like that we talked about, where, I saw that in the expenditures, nearly $500,000 compared to every community college, I'm saying, well, what is that for? And there, $200,000 to the ESD 189, what's that for? And so, I'm assuming these have all been discussed previously.
Yeah, I mean, this is the place to ask the questions. So if you've got questions, feel free.
Well, what is that $500,000 to every community college, or to every community college, what is it used for? I mean, or what is the purpose of that? Is it paid back to us? How does that work? I don't wanna use people's time, but I need to educate myself too. I'm gonna do a job for the people out here, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do wanna use their time, good job.
I know that as one of the agreements that we have, Vine, can you actually give us details?
Yeah, they're like $497,894 to every community college.
Yes, so, they bill us regularly, our students go there for school, so, if they're not here in our classrooms, then, we use some of those apportionment funds to go, to send over there, so we get, I think it's quarterly or semesterly bills from them, so,
Is that like Ready Start?
It's Running Start,
Or
yeah,
Running
so for those students, yeah, we spend that money over there, cause they're the ones doing the time in the classroom, if you will.
Other big ones, I was looking at ESD 189, $238,000 to them.
That's-
$250,000 to them. That's not giving us a whole lot of,
That's Open Doors, so, Open Doors is another program with which our students are able to attend, and then a portion of their apportionment goes to that for funding.
Good job, Craig.
the last one I had, there was Trevron cybersecurity, $213,000 for cybersecurity. I don't know, I mean, is that, what does that cover? I mean,
We talked about that at the last meeting, and that's about upgrading our network and our, protecting our, server and such. That's what we discussed at the last one. So there is on the previous agenda, a proposed, situation report for that one.
yeah, I was assuming that there was good answers for it, but I was just, again, looking at it, when we get the printout, we just have, here's the check, here's who it went to, it's like, if $500,000, what's that all about? I mean, it's for running start, that makes sense, but just kind of curious as to where the money goes, it's how, being transparent, how the money's being spent, where it's going.
Yep.
Yep, this is the place to ask the questions, so appreciate you asking those questions. I'm gonna go ahead and speak to the gifts to the district here. Special Olympics of Washington gifted to NVHS monetary gift of $3,026.95. And the purpose of that is the Unified Champion Schools banner and sports uniforms. We have Fidelity Charitable, who gave to McKinney-Vento Trust a monetary gift of $1,000, and the purpose of that is to purchase necessities for McKinney-Vento students. So in total, $4,026.95. So we appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure that I recognize those folks. Any other discussion?
I was just gonna say, I know we had a question about the performance-based pathway, new policy and just looking at the situation report, and feel free to jump in if I've got something incorrect, but it looks like it is an opportunity to align with what we're already doing at Legacy and at Heritage, that it fits within their big picture learning model that they're doing, and so this just gives a board policy to kind of support that, so there's an alternative pathway for those kids. Is that, we're at it?
Yes, that's correct. It allows them that pathway versus right now using like a GRU waiver or something like that.
Perfect, thank you.
I would imagine this policy, really affects those specific schools that are providing those functions. I would imagine a lot of work on this policy was had at that kind of school level too, just to make sure that this policy conforms to those different models that we're providing. Does that sound accurate? I know a lot of our policies, we just kind of copy and paste from WASDA, and so I just wanted to make sure that our schools also had an opportunity to kind of contribute into this policy.
It runs really close to WASDA. We do have a few minor changes in there just to reflect some of the things that we want to make sure, like there's a call out to cultural relevance, which maybe isn't called out in WASDA. The advisor or the person that might approve the project going forward, we expanded that a little bit. Our hopes is that this is something that every building can access. Right now we have a couple buildings that really know what they're doing in regards to that, but it's a wonderful way to help students really be driven towards success.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was my points that I wanted to make too, that this is something that's already been taking place with project-based learning with our Heritage Legacy campus, and I love that this is gonna be an opportunity to our other schools to look at what is helpful to the whole child. And I love that you made reference to cultural activities, because I mean, I know students who are fishing their own fishing boat and out there, you know, running a whole boat on their own while they're in high school. And Marysville used to have what they used to call Project Salmon, and it kind of evolved. That's like way back in the 80s. So I think that Marysville's been kind of ahead of the game in that sense with, yeah, that was back in the 80s, because some of the guys that went to Project Salmon actually rode my elementary school bus. So I just think it's amazing that there's a policy being put into place to support those types of things.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of experience you can gain from doing things outside of school, life experiences that contribute definitely to the overall learning of the students. So to be able to capture that, I think is important. Anything else? Any other discussion for consent agenda? All right, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next up, we're gonna get into the board action here. Number one on the list is surplus vehicles. This is gonna be presented by Brandon Bowman, Executive Director of Finance and Operations. It's good to see you again, Brandon.
Thank you, Connor. I'm here to present the declaration of surplus property for our transportation department. We're looking at having 11 of our school buses taken into surplus. They are all at the end of their depreciated life cycle. The depreciation, again, from the budget conversation, is what the state uses to reimburse us replacement costs for those buses. This fund is a completely different fund from the general fund, and we have a fund balance currently of $1.5 million. Our bus surplus bin, the following buses are off the OSBI bus depreciation schedule and are eligible to be declared surplus. Vehicles listed have both high mileage and need major repairs. Bus parts are getting harder to locate for the older buses, or they're completely unavailable. These buses will be decommissioned as needed throughout the year to replace. We have three mechanisms to remove buses. We can sell them at auction, we can scrap them, or we can trade them in for new buses. It is my recommendation that the board approve the surplus of these attached list of vehicle budgets, and we ask for that approval now.
Alrighty, do I have a motion?
I move to approve requisition number 0002989110 to Northwest Bus.
Hold on.
Oops, wrong
Sorry.
one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I move to approve the surplus of the attached list of the decommissioned buses.
Alright, motion and a second, so after the motion and the second, that opens up, discussion, and so is there any discussion from the board members?
It says on here, it says we can remove buses using one or a combination of the following. They can either be advertised, for public purchase, or private purchase. They can be sold through auction at James G. Murphy, or they can be used for trade. Has there been any, look at which of those is the most effective way? How do you get the most bang for the buck? I mean, if you go through an auction, do you get more, but then you have to pay that third of your cost? I mean, so what's the most fiscally sound way for us to do this?
So the answer to your question, yes, we've looked into that. When we sell them at auction, it depends on high mileage, the mileage and condition of the bus. The auction house does take a percentage of the sale, so that is not always the best course of action. I know that we have 2 of those buses are basically at scrap value because they do not run, and we will have to tow them to scrap. We're looking at trading in 3 of them, which is the biggest bang for your buck. We get a larger credit for a trade-in, and usually those are the newer buses that we can get more value out of. And then the process of trading that in reduces our total spend on that. We're looking at 6 buses for auction and selling outright does give us a greater percentage of that sale, but we also get greater exposure from using the auction house. And so I don't have the detail list for the 6, but those are the options that we have.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this before. I don't know if you were even here yet, Brandon, but, we talked about, it seems like right now there are people buying up buses and stuff like this and converting them into like travel trailer or, RV type things. So I know the board was curious what that looked like from a, public entity, type of situation. And then I think I remember hearing that, the trade-in value, although it's kind of more, there's a process set up for it, it might make it a little easier for us. I think I remember that the trade-in value actually wasn't that much. I think it was like $100 to $500, that they would, right, and so, yeah, I mean, and I think we also talked about, do we have buses currently that are decommissioned that we have specifically for like part replacement, scrap and salvage type buses? So yeah, I do remember that conversation, and I'm interested to see what these buses go for at auction, and if we do sell any of these kind of more privately to private buyers, I'd be interested to see what the market is there too.
So my question is really just related to our process. Glad to see that we've identified some surplus vehicles. Have we done an inventory of all of our vehicles, not just buses, to make sure we know which ones we're using, which ones we're not? And then I'm thinking about that just in terms of insurance, to make sure that we're only insuring what we need to insure.
Yeah, so part of the reason for this surplus is so we are insuring only what we need to insure. And as far as the total life cycle of every vehicle we have a depreciation life cycle schedule that is set by the state. And we also keep maintenance records on each one of those buses to see what condition they are. A lot of the buses that are on the surplus list are very, very high mileage. A lot of them have expensive repairs, and a lot of them have older parts that we cannot find, and they'd be expensive to replace. And so as far as using them as a personal scrapyard, I'm pretty sure that we are working to use what we can. but we also wanna make sure that we're putting the right parts on our buses and bringing our kids to school safely with those right bus parts.
Any other discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next up, purchase of 3 school buses, presented by Brandon Bowman, Executive Director of Finance and Operations.
Thank you. On the topic of buses, we'd like to purchase 3 brand new buses to replace some of those that we are decommissioning out of our fleet. This does have an impact to our transportation fund at an amount of $537,866.53. This is well within our fund balance in the transportation fund, and it's included in our plans. Per OSBI state quote 23-24 specifications, and utilizing the state contract, the district meets all bid requirements. The district is purchasing 3 new buses with your approval to replace aging or broken buses. My recommendation is to approve requisition number 000298910 for Northwest Bus Sales Incorporated for the total of $121,881.60. And also requisition number 000298911 for Bryson Sales and Service for the total amount of $415,984.93.
Alrighty, do we have a motion? Who wants to read that one?
I move to approve requisitions number 000298910 to Northwest Bus Sales for the total amount of $121,881.60. And requisitions number 000298911 for Bryson Sales and Service for the total amount of $415,984.93.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
So I just wanna come back to, this is coming out of transportation fund, it's not the general fund, it can only be used for buses.
That is correct. The transportation fund can only be used for the purchase of yellow buses. It's not included in our budget workshop that we just went through for our general fund.
I think we ask this question every time we get new buses, but it's also, my understanding is that you use it or lose it kind of proposition, that if we don't use the funds that we have, they kind of go away.
Yeah, that is exactly the case. So the state of Washington gives us revenue in the form of replacement costs for each bus. And as we purchase buses and they go on their depreciated life cycle, they give us funds for those buses. In no way do we get any benefit for extending the life cycle past that 13 years for the large buses and 8 years for the smaller buses. And so it is use it or lose it. And as replacement costs for buses go up, it is important for us to follow the schedule established by the state of Washington so we can keep up with the cost. In this situation for the 3 buses, it's also important to note that in the next year, they cost more money. And this year is the final year of a certain price point. I believe it's $25,000 to $50,000 per bus. And so we're actually saving the state money as we go forward and getting the benefit of the larger replacement costs going forward.
So the purchase of buses comes out of the transportation fund. Does the maintenance of our buses come out of that same fund?
Yeah, so there is an element of maintenance and MRO work that is done for each bus. That comes from the apportionment from the state in the transportation fund.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion, comments, or questions from the board?
Just building on your question, then, arguably, you would be saving money on maintenance, by not having to maintain older vehicles.
Yeah.
And saving money out of the general fund for that, in theory.
But do we pay, so our maintenance techs, their salaries, does that come out of the general fund or the transportation fund?
I think it's a combination of salary coming out of that fund. I would need to dive in and make sure that's the case. And I believe the actual maintenance is being.
Parts and stuff like that.
Yeah, parts and the things that were required for the bus are coming out of the fund. It's a very specific fund, only for the purchase of buses and limited maintenance.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, next up, Brendan, you're still gonna be up there, food service consulting and purchasing. And I don't know, I don't think I have to introduce you again.
Yes, well, yeah, so also on the operations side of the fence, we reviewed our food service provider, for Marysville School District. We're also changing our model from a fully managed model to one that is partially managed, by us. It does have a fiscal impact as it goes in and out of our cash flows, as meals are now covered by the state fully, there's an in and out that, needs to be addressed in the budget. In the general fund, capital projects fund, associated student body fund, debt service fund, and transportation vehicle fund, all of these can be affected. Our strategic goal is, to have district resources being aligned to student learning and strategic, priorities. So we reviewed 2 bids that were open on August 14th, 2024, as process is required. We had 2 bids that were opened in public by our team. The bidders were Sodexo and SFE. The lowest responsible and responsive bidder was Sodexo, meeting most of our reporting requirements that were requested. The district committee recommends to the board of directors the award for RFP 3-2024 to Sodexo as the food service consulting and purchasing company. Sodexo's estimated direct cost would be $2,482,135, which includes a flat monthly rate of $13,662.67 for administrative fees. We're asking for the board to approve our recommendation for food service provider.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move to approve Sodexo as the food service consulting and purchasing company for 2024-2025 school year with the option to extend yearly over 4 years.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Do I have any discussion from the board? Did we go with, I don't know if you said so, I was looking at the numbers on the back. Did we go with Sodexo last year?
Yes, we had Sodexo last year.
Okay, and this is, I think I remember that. Did we do a 4-year contract with them last year? So this is just, we're doing the annual approval of
Correct,
Sodexo?
yes, it's a yearly. Yes.
You weren't here last year, so I
I wasn't
wasn't
here last
expecting you to do
year.
that.
We did discuss how that was a 4-year, overall contract, but now it's an annual.
So we have the option of doing, let's see. Okay, so they're coming back to the table annually now instead of every 4 years.
Yeah, so we have the option to make a change annually, and as we look at the performance, this year, we have options to exercise that change.
Great. Any other discussion from the board?
So I have a question, and I don't need an answer tonight necessarily, but I just am curious. Since the district qualifies for meals for every child, and I see an administrative fee per meal. Nope, okay. I guess I'm just curious if our administrative fees are increased or decreased based on, the fact that all of our kids are eligible for meals. So I just am curious how it works, and I don't, unless there's an easy answer, you can get back to me, but.
We do have an answer.
Awesome.
So, the administrative fees with this style of contract are not per meal. That's how we've done it in the past, which makes this contract completely different. These fees are going to be a flat rate and not change, with this contract. So we won't be penalized by feeding more kids. We will just stay at a flat rate. That's different from the other proposed contract with SFE, which would penalize us if we feed more kids.
Perfect. I see that with a little bit more careful reading, so thank you.
Any other discussion from the board?
Well, I guess when you say a penalty for feeding more, you won't get the penalty for feeding more kids because you're using the average, or estimated yearly meal count. I guess I've had a couple of people ask me about, times where there wasn't enough meals to feed kids at schools, so I'm just curious about how that count works. I know that's nothing to do with this contract, but I'm curious if you know that, like when a situation like that would happen, if we're not penalized, then wouldn't they, I guess, just prepare enough meals for all kids?
So we base our meal estimates, on a daily basis, based on attendance. So we get the whole, unexpected field trips that weren't communicated with kitchen managers, or things like that end up, oh, there were no sack lunches to send to those kids. Communication breaks down sometimes. We're hoping to get that fixed in the next few months. But, that being said, like, we always prepare based on attendance. We can't foresee all 100 kids in a school only wanting pizza when we have pizza and nachos. So there's always going to be enough food to feed the kids served on that day. It just might not be exactly what they all wanted, the pepperoni pizza.
Thank you. Sorry, I know that was off random, but I literally had a couple people ask that question.
Good question. Any other discussion from the board? Alrighty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Yet again, Mr. Brandon, July 2024 financials.
Thank you, and to the benefit of the board, I will give a fresh face to give this presentation. I was also here the last part of July, so to present July financials, I have Susan Halliday, my accounting and budget manager.
Thank you very much. Hey, Susan.
Brandon's a little bit taller than I am. So I'm presenting July financials. We have 5 funds, for those of you who haven't been keeping track. General fund ended July with a negative balance, but it was not as negative as the previous months. It's actually come up. Capital projects is doing fine. It was paid back the $2.5 million that we borrowed in the month of June. Debt service is also fine. ASB was quiet, and transportation vehicle fund is doing well.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the attached July financial reports.
Second.
All right, discussion. Real quick, are we able to get, Aaron, are you able to get this on those screens?
So while he's working on that, I had just a clarifying question on the cash flow on this document. It is just general fund, so when we're looking at the cash flow piece for the FY '23 ending balance at the end of July with a negative number there, it is just general fund, it doesn't include capital, transportation, everything else, right?
Yes, school districts do fund accounting, so each fund is its own separate set of books. They each balance out, so they each have their own cash account, they have their own assets, liabilities, and fund balance. And general fund is the focus of most of our attention right now.
Right, and so when we're carrying our fund balance forward more broadly, it includes all of those funds together, so that's how we get to a beginning positive fund balance.
All of
During our budget, right?
Yes, all of general fund ends with the fund balance. It's our running total.
And then I think my next question for you starts on, the budget status report. And looking at our, projected revenue for the rest of the fiscal year versus our projected I guess I'm curious about that, because it shows that we might have the possibility, or at least we budgeted for $25 million, which should be August funds. Are you anticipating, how are you anticipating that to work out? Are we?
So the budget's based on how much we think we could collect. It would be the total of all of the different grants. So for example, let's talk about Title I as our example. Title I, we will probably not collect every penny in the Title I grant. So we will not achieve that revenue, but we will also not spend every penny in that grant. So the revenues and the expenditures will offset each other.
So, but reasonably assured that from like the state general purpose fund, we're expecting $13 million in change. Chances are from the state, we will get that apportionment.
We will get apportionment in August, and it tends to be fairly decent. We also get some state safety net and federal safety net in August. August tends to be a good month for our apportionment.
Just am working to reconcile, and I realize there are two different reports with two different things on it. The anticipation on our cash report of about $15 million in change versus the $25 million, and trying to kind of.
Yeah, when you look at the projection of the fund balance and look at last year, you can see there's a considerable uptick for August. And that's part of how we're anticipating that we're going to end with a positive fund balance. Some of these numbers we won't know until we actually finish year end, which finishes in October.
Right, I was gonna say, I know that not everything is gonna come in exactly by August 31st.
Yes,
That would be nice, but it doesn't happen that way.
We do receive some money in September, when we're claiming grants that we've already spent for the past year, and we will receive a little bit in October. So part of the closing the books is reconciling some of this money out.
Okay. And then I just wanna, you did state it, but I wanna just repeat it because I know it's been a point of interest. We had to borrow some funds in June from our capital fund, and it was repaid at the beginning of July.
The funds that we borrowed in June were repaid. We paid half of them mid-July.
Okay.
And I paid the half at the end of July, but I had a root canal, and the county treasurer got it beginning of August.
Okay.
But either way, it is repaid now, and the conditions of the resolution was that it was be repaid by August 1st. So we met those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
That was my, clarification that I was gonna ask about, was the repayment of the June loan to ensure that, that was reflected. Clarification.
So, what amount do we still currently owe to our capital projects?
We owe the capital projects $5 million that we borrowed earlier this year, as well as interest on that.
I do appreciate I don't remember seeing this last month, but I appreciate the executive summary that you attached as well. Just kind of gives a more of a general look at where all of our funds are. And then you have the opportunity to dive into the kind of more in-depth stuff, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had a comment about the previous capital, loan, that I thought that on the loan that we had, not this one that we did in June, but the $5 million one prior, I thought we didn't have to pay the interest on that because it wasn't disclosed to us that we did have to pay the interest, but moving forward, we have to pay the interest.
The apportionment advance, we did not pay interest on it because OSPI did not disclose to us that normally they charge interest. And they did excuse the interest on that. But the $5 million to capital projects, we locked in that interest rate, and we used the interest rate that Snohomish County treasurers offer, so that we will be paying that back to ourselves with interest.
I thought that that's what they had said in one of the meetings with OSPI and, ESD.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board members? Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Brandon. All right, next up, Marysville Pochuck High School Commons siding replacement. This is presented by Greg Dennis, Director of Safety, Security, and Facilities.
Greg. Good evening, board. Welcome, Director Harris, School Board and Superintendent. I bring before you tonight, not a board action, even though I'm under the board action category, but I bring an informational report as a way of describing how we are spending our $3.6 million that we received from the Distressed Schools Grant. We promised the community and the board that we would communicate each of those dollars that are being spent. If you recall, back on May 6th, I presented at a work study the fact that of our list of projects that we went over, one of those projects was the siding has failed on the MP Commons. Unfortunately, that's only a 10-year-old building. And while there is still some warranty left on the material itself, there is no warranty left on the craftsmanship, and also that contractor, excuse me, that installed it doesn't exist anymore either. And so, in an effort to protect our investment and keep our building dry, and we had to go out and get proposals for new siding and a different brand of siding. We're using the KCDA contract to award this bid. And the total cost is $264,760.72, including tax. And again, this is from the $3.6 million in the Distressed Schools Grant that we received. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very much. Since this isn't a action item, I'll have to have a motion. Is it, when we have contractors perform work on schools, we have to go through the same process of sending stuff out for bid, making sure that whoever we select is the most cost effective for our district? And then what safeguards are in place to ensure, it sounds like the organization who installed our siding originally, it just sounded very sneaky, that they would do poor work and then you know, after a number of years cease to exist. And so, are there safeguards in place to ensure that when we get this siding replaced, that we're not experiencing another one of those businesses who would do shoddy work and then bail after they've received a paycheck from us?
Yeah, so in reference to the previous contractor, they'll remain nameless, but back to the project from 10 years ago, we always vet the general contractor, and then we also, they have to identify their electrical by lot, they have to identify their electrical sub, their mechanical sub, and their site work sub. They don't have to identify all their subcontractors, and so we never know, and we don't have anything in our conditions, who the subcontractor is going to be. So moving forward, that's something that could be added to our general conditions, that all subcontractors are vetted, or have to have so many years of experience. I know it's not uncommon for subcontractors, especially if they have a small scope of work. The siding on this project was small, but in general, people that have smaller scopes of work will come in and create a business just to do that job, and then close their doors on that business, and move on to something else, so they just take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of them.
Yeah, I know you were talking about protecting our investment and if, obviously, if we would have gotten ahead of that, initially, potentially we wouldn't have to, do rework in order to ensure that our schools stay, protected. I would say that's pretty typical, in most private sector businesses to flow down terms and conditions, even to sub-suppliers, sub-tier suppliers. I think as much work that we can do as a district to protect ourselves, I mean, we should make those, terms and conditions pretty substantial, so. Any other?
Sure, I have a comment. I wonder about, having these contractors, fill out the federal department or state department form when they're chosen, but also if that is an issue where subs come in or they create a sub just to, come in and get a portion of the work, then having some type of, where they have to say who their subs are, kind of like the tarot process that, we do with any contractors, general contractors that we get within our programs, cause that seems like an issue, but also I'm curious about retention and if we do any, retention when we, award a project for purposes of failed siting or whatever.
Yeah, so, all of our contractors do complete the suspension and debarment paperwork. They are vetted through L&I and employment security and all those things. We do hold retention on all of our projects or a retained bond, depending on that's the option of the contractor. That's not up to the district, it's just we're responsible for that 5% retainage. And then, but, at the time we released that retainage and all the agencies signed off that we were able to release the retainage, obviously the product was still good at that point in time. And the problem with this, a little more background, the problem with this particular siding was the siding that was spec didn't require sheeting to be on the walls first. It was a strong enough product that it could support itself from shift and whatnot. The alternate product that was approved by the architects and engineers, going back on looking at it now, it required backing on that material that didn't exist, and so it wasn't a like-for-like substitution and shouldn't have been approved at the time, but unfortunately it was, and that's why I'm here before you tonight.
I'm curious to, how do we, just because I've seen this happen with buildings, how does MSD, is it you who goes in, or are you like the project coordinator and you go in and you say, yes, that looks good, move forward, it's within the scope?
Yeah, so some of our projects, like the totem seismic retrofit, we have project management on that firm, on that job, plus we have architects and engineers that have been approved through that OSPI grant. And so there's funding in place for that project management service. For the small work stuff, not multi-million-dollar projects, then yes, I'm usually that person for the district or one of my employees.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna get into some follow-up items, work study dates, board meeting dates, upcoming events. So we have the special session meeting on August 29th. That's the meeting that's currently scheduled. I think we discussed in a work study about another work study meeting on the 26th. It'll be a Monday. First day of school, August 29th for grades 1 through 5, 6, and 9, and then grades, all grades will attend on August 30th. And then preschool and kindergarten, all grades 1 through 12 will attend on August 30th. Preschool and kindergarten will start on the 4th of September. And the 4th of September is our next regular session meeting. Superintendent comments.
Thank you, President Krebs. So again, welcome to Director Hara. Welcome. One point of clarification, whenever we have to do maintenance to vehicles, that's paid from the general fund. Thank you to, again, HR and budget. It is great news that we expect a positive fund balance as we indicated in our comprehensive budget plan. So fantastic work. And fourth, just want to report that we have all insurance for next school year. We were waiting on our property insurance to come in, and it did. So we're in the process of finding that. And that's all I have for comments.
Thank you very much. Next up, we'll go to board comments. Director Davis, you want to start out?
Sure, just right up, I wonder about adding into this work study the insurance piece on the 26-2, just to get it out there so that everybody knows what our situation is. I also want to say thank you so much to everybody that came and made their comments. I really appreciate your advocacy, especially when looking at our support staffs. I myself is a support staff within schools too, so I get it and I understand I was not a represented group, but I do understand how that can be. I mean, it's your livelihood, your job, and also your passion. So I really appreciate folks coming in, advocating on behalf of our paras. And I want to say thank you to Brooke for acknowledging our partners too, and just really hitting the ground running and making sure that she's developing good relationships so that we can just continue to build that relationship and the capacity and move us forward in this district. And that's what it's going to take. So I just really appreciate you taking that time to make sure that you're developing those relationships, and Brandon for your good work too. It could not be easy to step into these vital roles. So I just really want to raise my hands to you and tell you, good job. And if you're unfamiliar, that's raising your hands is a gesture of thank you and welcoming for our people here, our Coast Salish people. But thank you so much. Appreciate you, and I'm happy that we're able to come back together on Monday and have another work study around our budget. I think it's important for our community to know that we hear you, and we're working towards improving and moving us forward through creating transparent procedures on how we do business, what's on our agenda, when we're gonna approve things. So looking forward to continuing down that road. Craig, I think you're gonna be great. I feel like we're gonna be great friends and buddies up here, so thanks so much. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Michael.
So I think I would echo almost everything that you said, if not everything. I wanted to welcome Director Harrod. We're so glad you're with us. I also wanted to be sure and thank Director Hoiby for her service on the school board. You know, there's obviously a lot of concern about our budget. We have had, by my count, at least 30 million plus in cuts over the last several years. And it's hard to continue to keep coming back to the well. It's super challenging when we look at taking athletic opportunities away from our kids. I certainly know in my family and a lot of families, and it is a way that kids stay connected at school. And it's not just sports, it's music and extracurricular activities and all of those things, they're so important. And I also, just echoing your comment about some of our, particularly paraeducators that we were talking about tonight, super challenging to see cuts in those areas. And, you know, I'm not sure what we can do, but, those are really, difficult to consider. I appreciate comments tonight about the community coming together, that we're all somebody, we can all make our community better. One of the things that I've seen in the last week that I just really encourages me, the Green and Gold Booster Club along with the MD Booster Club, they're selling community with unity outlined t-shirts where funds go, and you can decide where you want it to go, but to the boosters to help support our C teams. And, you know, for a couple of years now, the community has raised money so that our kids could play C team sports. And I know, it sounds like they've been working really hard. There's a spaghetti feed later in the month.
Yep.
But it is hard to, you know, it is hard to come by money. So if you can support them, please consider supporting them. And last, along the lines of education funding, there's a new report out from the League of Education Voters that talks about schools for all school districts. The way inflation and all sorts of different things are hitting school districts, and that state funding is not really keeping up. And it's a challenge that we've had here. So again, Craig, welcome, glad to have you.
Right, Director Herrick.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to serve, and I'm eager to get started. A lot of work to do, but I think that we're all kind of starting to focus in the right direction. I want to thank the other directors here for being so welcoming, and a lot to learn, a lot to get up to speed, and I promise to work hard and learn and try to do a good job, make good decisions, ask good questions, and listen to what concerns people have. It's time to kind of turn this ship around and get going in the right direction, and hopefully I can be part of that and get us back to a point where we have some pride in Marysville, and we're, you know, our kids are great kids, and we need to do what we can to give them the kind of schools and kind of education they deserve. They need the best, and so we need to be creative. We need to pull together, we need to focus on ideas rather than personalities. It's really makes me sad that Director Hoybe's not here, that she felt that, you know, that kind of personally beat up by this process. I think that my perspective has been, everybody up here has their hearts in the right place, is here for kids first, and they're trying to do the best job they can. Nobody up here is taking a nickel for all the time that they put in. They are giving of their time. You saw, you know, and I believe in education, I believe in this community. You saw my cute little grandkids, and I'm not gonna lie, I would much rather be with them, but this is important, and it's important for their future too. So, thank you for welcoming me, and I'll try not to let you down, and just be patient. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. You mentioned that one of your goals is to ask the right questions and ask questions of our community, and I would say that you've already started that tonight, and so I appreciate your questioning attitude. And I congratulate you to the board. We're excited to fill that seat, and so it's great to have you. And I wanted to speak about the summer graduation. It's my understanding that that type of event's the first time that Marysville has done that, and when I think about those students, you know, they spent 13 years in public school, and because they finished a month or two late, you know, I think that they're deserving of a little celebration, that they graduated and they're getting started off into their adulthood. And so I appreciate the fact that we did that, and I heard it was very well attended. I regret not being able to attend this summer, but I would love to attend next summer. I would love for us to continue to do that. I think that's special. And then I do wanna talk a little bit about, our vacant director position. Director Hoybe again, resigned on Friday. I do, thank her for the time that she spent. I know she, most definitely cares about the Marysville School District, has a lot of ties in Marysville, a lot of family history in Marysville. And I think, even though she won't be sitting in the seat, I think she'll continue to be, an advocate for the students and the Marysville community in general. But with that said, the process is, at most a 90-day process. I think, beginning this week, we'll put some stuff together to get notification out there into the community. What is her director position?
3.
1, 4, 5. It's
She's
5.
3.
Okay. All right, director position 5. So we'll get some stuff out there to fill, some information on what that process looks like. We'll have about a week or two, probably 2 weeks, I think we had last time, for people to get their name in the hat. And then from there, we'll schedule interviews, which again, the community is welcome to join in on that and be present for those. And then, I know, Craig, you just went through this, so you know the process. And then we'll get that seat filled. Ideally, all of our seats are filled. I think that's where we can be the most effective as a team. So I'm looking forward to getting that process started. That's all I have. I appreciate everybody for coming out tonight. I know you were all here specifically just to see Craig and nothing else, so I appreciate you staying for the whole meeting. I'm just kidding. Again, just a reminder for dates. Another work study should be scheduled for the 26th. And then again, a special session scheduled for the 29th. So thanks again, and we're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It's 7:42.